Hello students, this is Mrs. Miller, and the purpose of this video is to read aloud the passage entitled Trump on Immigration and to also share my thinking as I read. So here we go. Phoenix, CNN. That idea that Donald Trump is softening his immigration policy, not going to happen. The Republican presidential nominee on Wednesday re-upped the harsh immigration rhetoric that electrified his primary campaign, vowing no amnesty for undocumented migrants living in the United States and promising to build a beautiful and impenetrable border wall that Mexico would pay for, hours after that country's president vowed that it wouldn't. Okay, this was a lot of information. So on Wednesday, he said that he's going to have, he's continuing with the harsh immigration plan that he's laid out. And he's saying that undocumented migrants living in the United States would not be allowed to stay here in the country. And he's going to have a beautiful and impenetrable border wall built, and Mexico is going to pay for it, even though Mexico's country has said, or the president of Mexico said, this is not going to happen. I want to know, what is the deal with the wall? Immigrants come from all over the world. Why is he targeting Mexico? How in the world would he even enforce such a thing, especially since Mexico's president said Mexico will not pay for a wall? Let's continue. This election is our last chance to secure the border, stop illegal immigration, and reform our laws to make your life better, Trump said in Phoenix at the end of a dizzying day in which he made his first foray into international diplomacy with a visit to Mexico City, then baited a fired-up crowd with red meat rhetoric. Wow. So I I'm having a text to world connection right here because it seems to me like the way Trump is saying we're gonna stop the illegal immigrants and make your life better. That honestly reminds me of the message that came from Adolf Hitler when he was blaming the problems of Germany on the Jews, and he was saying, we're gonna put the Jews in the concentration camps or whatever to make your life better. So I'm having a text to world connection with that. The phrase red meat rhetoric is an idiom. I was not familiar with that term, so I opened up a tab at the top and I looked it up. So it's rhetoric used by campaign politicians that is forceful and poignant, as will excite or inflame his or her supporters. So what he's saying about immigration is inciting his supporters. It's inflaming them. They're fired up about what he's saying. So that tells me that they agree with what he's saying, they being Trump supporters. Let's continue on. On what might have been one of the most important days of his presidential campaign, Trump appeared to be recommitting his electoral fate in November to the white conservative base voters who swept him to victory in the GOP primary rather than seeking to broaden his base to a wider coalition of Americans. Wow, I am really surprised that Trump is trying to just hone in on the white conservative base. That's why he's pushing forward with this immigration plan, because he wants the vote of the white conservative base. And that seems to be the people who are supporting him and those who are in favor of his immigration plan. I also had a text to text connection. I remember seeing on the news some of the people at the Trump rallies and how they were yelling and screaming and fired up. And, to me, they were saying some really mean things. And that's what I thought of when I read this. So that's my text to text connection. Still, adding to the uncertainty that has clouded his immigration plan in recent days, Trump did not give a definitive answer about what he would do with most of the 11 million undocumented people who are not criminals, leaving open the possibility they would have to continue to hide in the shadows. I have a thought. The majority of immigrants are not criminals. Where does Trump get his information about immigrants who are criminals? Because if I remember correctly from watching CNN, that's some of the things he's saying is the illegal immigrants are criminals. Well, there's 11 million who are not criminals. That's the majority. What about the criminals we have in our country who are American, who are American citizens? Why does it seem like he's targeting this small group of people who commit crimes and what's he saying about American citizens who are criminals? That's just what I thought. But it was the tone of Trump's speech that was most notable. This is it. We won't get another opportunity. It will be too late, he said in a speech that recreated the vision of a dystopian, crime-riddled nation on the edge of an existential crisis that he deployed in his convention speech in Cleveland in July. Okay, this has a lot of big words in it, so I'm going to take a moment and explain what he's saying. In other words, Trump is saying if we don't act, if we don't build a wall, we're not going to be able to. It's going to be too late, and all of these criminals are going to come over from Mexico. Our communities are just going to be filled with crime because of the immigrants, and that's why he's fighting so hard to do what he wants to do. This is going along with my text-to-text connection that I mentioned earlier with when Hitler was basically saying that Germany was going to be destroyed because of the Jews. I feel like that's what Trump is saying here as well. He vowed to create a deportation task force within the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Division, focused on identifying and quickly removing the most dangerous criminal illegal aliens in America. He said he would boost the ranks of enforcement agents to enforce the existing laws. He vowed that any undocumented immigrants who are caught crossing into the U.S. will be detained until they are removed from our country and sent back to our country of origin. And he promised to repeal President Barack Obama's executive orders shielding some younger undocumented people, including those born in the United States, so-called dreamers, from deportation. My thought was, this makes me so sad. I have no words for this type of thing that's being pushed into the minds and thoughts of people. Let me break down what he's saying here. He's saying that he's going to have a task force, a group of people who go around and find the most dangerous criminals who are not U.S. citizens. Um, that's back to my text-to-text connection when the Gestapo would go from house to house and try to find the Jews. That's just what that reminded me of. He's going to have more enforcement agents to enforce the laws about citizenship for the United States. He's saying anybody who is undocumented, who's caught trying to get into the United States, is going to be captured and sent back to their country of origin. One thing that makes me sad about this is I think about some of the refugees from Syria who are fleeing and they're just trying to find a safe place to go because of the terror and things that's happening in their country. And it makes me sad to think that somebody would have to be sent back to that. I think about the dreamers who President Barack Obama said would be able to stay here, those born in the U.S. and those whose parents brought them over as young children that President Obama said would not have to be deported. Trump is saying he's going to repeal that. So he's going to say this is no longer on the table, and the dreamers that we read about before would have to be deported.